My mother-in-law called my boss and told him I was stealing from the company. I had been at that job for 11 years. She did not know that my boss was my best friend from college, or that he called me before he called her back. Tonight we have 5 stories about mothers-in-law who push too far, and 5 people who push back in ways nobody expected. Let me take you back to where this all started. Story 1 begins. My name is Jennifer. I am 37 years old. I live in Austin, Texas. And 16 months ago my mother-in-law called my employer and told the receptionist that she needed to speak to someone in management about an employee who had been stealing from the company. The employee she was reporting was me. My mother-in-law's name is Barbara. She is 64 years old and had been, for the 3 years of my marriage to her son, consistently and creatively difficult in ways I had been managing with varying degrees of success. The stealing accusation was the furthest she had gone. It had come from a specific argument the previous week in which I had told Barbara, clearly and for the first time with real firmness, that she would not be staying with us for 6 weeks over the summer as she had apparently been planning without being invited, and that 2 weeks was the maximum we could accommodate. Barbara had received this as a declaration of war. The phone call to my employer came 4 days later. What Barbara did not know, and what I had simply never mentioned to her because it had never come up, was that my boss, the director of our department who took Barbara's call after it was escalated from the receptionist, was a man named Chris who had been my best friend since our sophomore year of college and who had, in fact, been a groomsman at my wedding. A fact Barbara had apparently not connected to the person answering her call about employee theft. Chris called me from his office phone approximately 90 seconds after Barbara hung up. He described the call in careful detail, barely containing laughter, confirmed that he had not taken any notes and that the call would not appear in any HR system because he had answered it on his direct line rather than the main HR channel, and asked me what I would like him to do. I told him what I would like him to do. Chris called Barbara back from his direct line and introduced himself as the director of my department. He told her he had looked into her concerns and could confirm that I had an exemplary 11-year record with the company, that our security protocols made the kind of theft she had described essentially impossible, and that he was required to inform her that making false reports about employees to their employers could have legal implications she might want to discuss with an attorney. He then said, as a personal note, that he had been at my wedding and remembered her from the reception, and hoped she was doing well. Barbara apparently said nothing for a moment, and then said she must have had the wrong company and ended the call. I have never discussed this call with Barbara directly. She has never mentioned it. My husband knows because I told him that evening, and he had a conversation with his mother about appropriate boundaries that I was not present for, but that he described to me as direct and unambiguous. Barbara has not contacted my employer again. The summer visit was 2 weeks. Update: 4 months later. Barbara came for 2 weeks in July. The visit was, relative to previous ones, functional. She did not rearrange anything in my kitchen, make any calls to anyone on my behalf, or suggest alternative organizational systems for any room in our house. On the last day she said, somewhat stiffly, that she hoped we would have her back next summer. I said we would be happy to have her for 2 weeks next summer. She said 2 weeks was not very long. I said it was what worked for us. She said she supposed she understood. Chris came to a barbecue we had in August and Barbara was not there, but my husband mentioned to him, as a toast, that Chris had been one of the better friends either of us had that year. Chris said he had not done much. My husband said the fact that he had known exactly what to do counted as doing something. I thought that was right. Barbara called Jennifer's boss, but in story 2 the mother-in-law did not make a phone call. She made a purchase, a very large purchase, using a credit card that was not hers, and she did not expect the receipt to arrive before she did. Here is what happened. My name is Marcus. I am 40 years old. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. And 10 months ago my mother-in-law used my credit card, which she had found in my jacket pocket while I had been in the shower during a family visit, to purchase approximately $3,400 worth of furniture for her own house. My mother-in-law's name is Carol. She is 61 years old. The purchase had apparently been made during a 90-minute window in which Carol had been left alone in our house while my wife and I had gone to pick up my daughter from school. Carol had said she was tired and wanted to stay home. The furniture store was a 10-minute drive from our house. Carol had apparently driven there, selected several items including a dining table, chairs and a side table, paid using my credit card details which she had either memorized from the jacket or photographed, and arranged for delivery to her own address, that I found out when I checked my banking app that evening, and saw a charge of $3,412 from a furniture store I had not been to. My wife called her mother. Carol said, with what my wife described as remarkable composure, that she had borrowed the card and that she had intended to pay me back and that it had been an emergency because the furniture sale was ending that day. I want to be clear about the sequence of my response because the sequence was deliberate. I did not call Carol. I did not argue. I called the furniture store the following morning, explained that my card had been used without my authorization, and provided the transaction details. The store pulled the purchase and confirmed the delivery address, Carol's address, and confirmed the sale. I told them I would not be authorizing the payment, and that the charge was disputed. I filed a dispute with my credit card company, which investigated and reversed the charge within 10 days. I then, while the reversal was processing, contacted the furniture store and let them know that since the payment had been reversed, they would presumably be coordinating the return of the items, and provided Carol's address again for their reference. The furniture store sent a pickup truck to Carol's address 9 days after the delivery. The dining table, chairs, and side table were collected. Carol called my wife 6 times the day of the pickup. She called me once, which I let go to voicemail. The voicemail said she could not believe I had done this, and that family did not treat each other this way, and that the furniture had already been placed, and she did not understand why I had not simply spoken to her directly. I texted her back one sentence. I said using someone's credit card without permission is not borrowing, it is fraud, and that I had responded accordingly. Carol did not respond to the text. She did not speak to me directly for 2 months. My wife, who had been initially caught between two positions, arrived at a clear one fairly quickly. She told her mother that what she had done was not a family matter handled incorrectly. It was a crime handled correctly, and that the response had been proportional. Update: 3 months later. Carol came for a visit last month. She did not mention the furniture. She did not mention the credit card. She brought a dish she had cooked and she was civil, and she did not go into any room in our house that she had not been specifically invited into. At one point during the visit she asked where we had gotten our dining table. My wife and I looked at each other, and my wife said we had had it for years. Carol said it was nice. I said thank you. Nobody said anything further. There are conversations that end in the only way available to them given what they contain, and I think that was one. My credit card is no longer in my jacket pocket when Carol visits. Marcus got every item returned. But story 3 is about a mother-in-law who did not take anything. She gave something nobody had asked for, to someone who had specifically said no, and the response was something she had not prepared for. Here is what happened. My name is Ashley. I am 31 years old. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and 14 months ago my mother-in-law announced the sex of our baby to 40 guests at our gender reveal party approximately 20 minutes before we had planned to do so ourselves. And 3 days after I had specifically asked her to keep it confidential after telling her in a moment of excitement I have since fully processed as a mistake. My mother-in-law's name is Diane. She is 58 and has a specific relationship with information that she has received in confidence, which is that she holds it until she cannot anymore, and then she shares it. I had learned this about her before the gender reveal. I had told her anyway, because she had been standing in my kitchen looking so genuinely eager to be included that my judgment had momentarily failed me. Diane announced, to a group of guests gathered near the food table 20 minutes before we were scheduled to do the reveal, that she was just so excited she had to share. It was a boy. The announcement spread through the 40 guests in approximately 4 minutes. My husband found me in the kitchen and told me what had happened. I stood in the kitchen for a moment processing this. Then I told him what I was going to do, and he looked at me and said that was either the best or worst idea he had ever heard, and he was going to let me find out. We proceeded with the reveal as planned. I stood in front of 40 guests who mostly already knew, with my husband next to me, and said that I understood that some of them had already heard some news, and that I wanted to do the reveal anyway because this was our moment, and we had planned it, and one piece of premature information was not going to take it from us. Then I popped the balloon. Pink confetti came out. We were having a girl. The room was quiet for a second, and then absolutely erupted, because we had told Diane a boy specifically because I had suspected she would not be able to hold the information, and I had wanted to protect the actual reveal. And the 40 guests who had been told boy by Diane were now watching pink confetti fall and recalibrating everything simultaneously. Diane stood in the crowd looking at the pink confetti with an expression I will remember for the rest of my life. My husband put his arm around me. I looked at Diane and smiled in a way that contained a complete and specific message that required no words. Diane did not say anything for the rest of the party. She helped clean up afterward, which I think was her version of an apology. She has never mentioned the boy announcement again. Our daughter was born 4 months later. Her name is not anything Diane suggested. Update. 4 months later. Our daughter is 4 months old, and Diane has been, since the birth, noticeably more careful about information she is given in confidence. She has been told 2 things in confidence since the gender reveal. One about a family financial matter, and one about a pregnancy in another branch of the family. And as far as I can confirm, both have remained confidential. I do not know if the pink confetti cured her permanently or temporarily, and I am not assuming either. What I do know is that she holds our daughter with genuine love every time she visits, and that our daughter does not yet know what pink confetti means, and will not know this story for many years, and that when she finds out, I think she is going to find it one of the better ones about her arrival. Ashley had the real reveal ready, but in story 4, what was ready was not a balloon. It was a document. 3 years of a document that a mother-in-law did not know existed until the day it was used. Here is what it contained. My name is Rachel. I am 36 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, and 8 months ago I sat down with my husband on our 5th wedding anniversary and showed him a document I had been maintaining for 3 years, a detailed, dated, specific record of every significant instance of his mother's interference in our marriage that I had not been able to successfully communicate to him through ordinary conversation. My mother-in-law's name is Linda. She is 63 years old, and she and my husband are close in the specific way of a mother and son, where the closeness had never been examined for what it contained, which meant that my husband received his mother's behavior through a filter of love and familiarity that made things look different to him than they looked to me. I had tried over 3 years to communicate specific instances of interference, Linda inserting herself into financial decisions we had not asked her about, Linda making commitments on our behalf to other family members without consulting us, Linda calling my husband on his work phone during hours she knew I could not reach him to have conversations she did not want me to be part of. Each time I had raised something specific, my husband had heard me, had agreed that the specific instance was not ideal, and had then responded in a way that addressed that instance without addressing the pattern. The pattern was the problem, and he could not see it from the individual instances. So I had started keeping a record. Not vindicatively. I had started it as a way of managing my own clarity, so that I was not bringing emotion to every conversation, so that I had facts rather than feelings when I needed them. 3 years of facts had produced a 40-page document. I chose our anniversary deliberately, not as a confrontation but as a commitment. I told my husband that I loved him, and that I wanted our next 5 years to be different from the last 3 in one specific way, and that I had something to show him that I had been building, because I had not known how else to make the pattern visible. He read the document over 2 hours while I sat across from him. He asked 4 questions during the reading. He was quiet when he finished. Then he said he could see the pattern. He said it clearly, without qualification. He could see it and he understood why I had not been able to show it to him through individual conversations, and he was sorry it had taken this form to make it visible. We talked for the rest of the evening. Not about Linda specifically but about our marriage and about what we both needed it to contain, and about what his relationship with his mother needed to look like for our marriage to have what we both said we wanted. He called Linda the following week. I was not present for the call. He told me afterward that it had been one of the harder conversations of his adult life, and that Linda had cried, and that he had told her clearly what needed to change. The document is in a folder on my computer. I have not added to it in 8 months. I hope I never need to open it again, and I think the hope is reasonable. Update: 3 months later. Linda came for a visit last month. The first visit since my husband's call with her. She was different in ways that were specific and observable. She asked before making any plans that involved us. She did not call my husband's work phone. She brought a gift for me specifically. Not for the house, not for both of us, for me. A book she had seen that she thought I would like based on something I had mentioned months ago that she had apparently remembered and acted on. I received the gift and thanked her and thought about 40 pages of documented interference, and about the book in my hands and about what 3 years of a document and 1 anniversary evening and 1 difficult phone call had produced, and I thought it had produced this. A woman handing me something she had chosen specifically for me because she had been paying attention. That is not nothing. I am treating it as not nothing, and I am watching to see what comes after it. Rachel's document changed. Her marriage. Our final story tonight. Story 5 is about a document too, but this one was not kept in secret. It was sent to 47 people at once by the mother-in-law herself, and it backfired in a way she could not have predicted. Here is the last story. My name is Daniel. I am 44 years old. I live in Seattle, Washington. And 12 months ago my mother-in-law sent a group email to 47 family members and close family friends with the subject line, concerning Daniel and the situation at Thanksgiving, in which she described, in detail and from her perspective only, an argument that had occurred at Thanksgiving dinner 3 weeks earlier. My mother-in-law's name is Margaret. She is 68 years old, and is someone who has always had a particular faith in the written word as a tool of persuasion, which in this case expressed itself as a 3-page email sent to everyone she could think of who might be sympathetic. The argument at Thanksgiving had been real. It had been about something specific. Margaret had, during dinner, made a comment about our parenting of our 12-year-old son that had been pointed enough that I had responded directly rather than absorbing it, as I usually did, in silence. The exchange had been brief but visible, and had ended the dinner earlier than planned. Margaret's email described the argument as an unprovoked attack on her by me in front of the family, characterized my response as aggressive and disrespectful, described her comment about our parenting as a simple observation made out of love, and concluded with an expression of hurt that was written for maximum effect. I read the email when it arrived on a Tuesday morning. I read it twice. Then I hit reply all. My reply was 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph quoted Margaret's description of her comment about our parenting, and then quoted, word for word, what she had actually said at the table, which I had written down that evening while it was fresh because I had known something was going to happen with it. The second paragraph described the actual exchange factually, including the specific words I had said and the specific tone. and invited any of the 47 recipients who had been present at the table to correct me if my account was inaccurate. The third paragraph said that I had a great deal of respect for Margaret as a grandmother and as a person, and that I had no interest in conducting our family's conflicts by group email, and that this reply would be my only group email contribution to this discussion. The fourth paragraph said that my door was open to any individual who wanted to have a direct conversation, and that I looked forward to a good Christmas. I sent it. The responses came in over the next several hours. Several were private replies to me expressing support. Several were private replies to Margaret that I was not copied on but that my wife, who had also received the original email and my reply, and who had read both with the specific expression of someone watching two trains approach each other, told me had been more mixed than Margaret had expected. Margaret did not reply to my email. She called my wife. The call was long. Margaret's position, initially, was that I had humiliated her by replying publicly to a public email, which my wife pointed out was a characterization that contained its own answer. Christmas happened. It was careful and not warm and functional, and nobody sent any group emails about it. Update. 4 months later. Margaret sent an email last month. To me only, not to 47 people. It was 3 sentences. It said she had been thinking about Thanksgiving and about the group email, and that she understood now that the email had not been the right approach, and that she was sorry for the way she had handled it. She did not apologize for the original comment about our parenting. I wrote back 2 sentences. I said I appreciated her saying so, and that I looked forward to seeing her at the next family gathering. We have had 2 family gatherings since. She has not made a comment about our parenting at either of them. I have not sent any group emails. I consider this progress, and I am willing to let progress be enough.